Welcome to CommercialDrones.fm, the podcast that explores the commercial drone industry, the people who power it, and the concepts that drive it. I'm your host, Ian Smith. Hey everybody, Ian Smith here, and I am with Biren Gandhi in San Jose, California, or Santa Clara. I'm not sure which one we're in.
It's San Jose.
San Jose, cool. I'm with Biren Gandhi today, and Biren is a distinguished strategist in Cisco's corporate strategy office, and he's focused on identifying key technology trends and accelerating their adoption through acquisitions, development, or partnering. So currently, Biren is spearheading the strategy for highly disruptive technologies such as the Internet of Things, fog computing, drones and UAVs, blockchain, deep learning, robotics, and artificial intelligence. Biren is also an advisory board member of Drone World Expo, which is a commercial drone conference taking place here in San Jose, California, on October 3rd and 4th. So a little under 3 months or so probably from when we air this. So Biren, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for hosting me. We're here at Cisco's offices, as I mentioned, in San Jose or Santa Clara, whatever you prefer, in California. And yeah, I think first to kind of kick us off here, how about you tell us a little bit about your background and maybe, how you came to Cisco and what it is that you do here with drones?
Absolutely. Would be happy to. So as part of my current role at Cisco, part of corporate strategy office, we are constantly discovering new ideas, disruptive ideas, particularly which are 3 to 5 years out, and see which are the ways we can accelerate them using Cisco's 5 pillars of innovation strategy, build, buy, partner, invest, or co-create. So one of those ideas is obviously drones, which is my favorite today. But going back a little bit, the way I ended up at Cisco is I'm coming from social networking background. Primarily, I used to work at Facebook in the early days, then Zynga, had my own startup in between. And as a bunch of series of steps on the way, I came to Cisco when Cisco was building enterprise-grade social networking system. So I used to work in that part of Cisco before moving onto this drone project and other exciting things. So that's a little bit about the journey, but I think the key factor here is we are always on the lookout for what's out there. How can we make a big difference? Sometimes there is a unique DNA between startup, mid-sized companies, and large corporations. So certain things only small companies can do, and startups can do much better. But certain other things, large companies can do in a much better way because of their global footprint, all the infrastructure set up and relationships with the industry players, government, regulatory authorities, and all those things. So we are trying to leverage our strengths in various areas like drones, blockchain, AR, VR, robotics, artificial intelligence, and whatnot.
Cool. So Cisco is a public company. So the revenues, I was just doing some quick Googling. This isn't very scientific, but it was revenues of nearly $50 billion last year. And the company has been historically focused on networking equipment, or at least that was the start of the company back, 30 plus years ago. Mm-hmm. So how do drones come into play here at Cisco then? Maybe you can describe a little bit deeper on what the strategy is here and how drones could be potentially useful to Cisco's core business.
Absolutely. So I think even though Cisco is known as its strength and presence and market presence for the networking equipment, networking industry, and lately more security industry as well, I think we are always from leadership onwards, top leadership downwards, we are always looking out for other revenue channels, new ideas, always exploring what are the other innovative ways. And it's a little known fact that Cisco has even $2 billion of investment portfolios into startups, incubators, accelerators, venture positions, and many other things. And $12 billion of annual revenue is coming from non-product, more the services area. So these are little known facts out of those $50 billion number you mentioned. So we are doing many more things beyond networking anyway. And from a drone's perspective, how they are relevant is, if you look at it, it's a 3-phase journey. People are talking about the digital disruptions, digitization. These days, it's capturing the whole momentum of top leadership minds in the world. So digital disruption is at the highest level. Then the next level down, if you look at it, it's the whole IoT paradigm, the Internet of Things, the hyper-connectivity of various gadgets, various equipment, small devices, mid-sized devices, connectivity, security, processing around those. So how things are connected together. So that's like actually enabling the digital disruption to happen. And if you go one further level down, drones are nothing but actually an embodiment of IoT journey. So for Cisco, drones are kind of, think of it as like a moving sensor and actuator body, which is just like on the wheels on the ground or aerial. Doesn't matter really. It's like a bunch of sensors tied together, or in some cases actuators as well. So if you compare it with industrial IoT, it's a combination of sensors and actuators and systems that can command and control those things together in a seamless way, in a secure way, while offering some sort of a group level collaboration, geographical diversity, and security on top of those things. So it's a very relevant three-phase journey: digital disruptions, IoT, and drones as embodiment of that IoT journey.
Speaking of IoT, so my idea of IoT is, from a consumer perspective at least, it's like my smart fridge, which is connected to the internet, or my coffee machine that I can program through my phone, or my thermostat that I can also say, stop cooling the house while I'm gone, or something like that. So drones right now are not connected to the internet per se directly while they're flying en masse. Do you believe that drone IoT has more development to take before it's truly, quote unquote, the internet of things, or of drones, IoD or something? I mean, basically what I'm getting at is, do we have a lot more room to grow here once drones are connected to the internet while they're flying around and have SIM cards with LTE or 3G, 5G connectivity while they're flying?
Absolutely. I think if you look at it, connectivity is just like one big pillar of the whole IoT paradigm shift. The reason is the fridge is connected, my XYZ sensor is connected. But if you look deeper, actually, there are three pillars: the monetization, productivity, and the user experience that drives the whole IoT ecosystem forward. Anything that has new ways of making money, I think that's always the big focus of any big corporation, any company, any business endeavor, right? I mean, that's obvious things. Productivity is another big deal, like how IoT actually increases the productivity in the workforce. So extracting more juice out of your expenditures, right? That's also another obvious thing. So top line on the monetization side, bottom line on the productivity side. And the third thing is, how can you use these extremes together to provide an enhanced customer experience for your customers? So IoT is nothing but actually a combination of these three pillars. And the way I see drones as, how can drones help out in enhancing these three pillars of IoT experience? So whether they are connected or not connected, in some cases, yes, it's better for them to be connected to internet. But in some cases, there are legitimate, genuine reasons. And maybe we'll talk at a later stage about the fog computing paradigm. So sometimes they cannot be connected to the larger internet or the cloud in general as we speak. But even then, can they provide monetization? Can they provide productivity improvements? Can they provide better customer experience? If yes, then whether they're connected or not, it's immaterial. They're still addressing these three core pillars, foundations of IoT, and hence drones will be relevant in that context.
So is a drone just kind of a glorified piece of networking equipment to Cisco? I mean, it's a flying refrigerator or a coffee machine or something that's connected. I mean, how do you guys view these? And is your view of drones, is it pure? Well, I wouldn't say it's probably purely commercial focused, because there are many consumer applications, and I'm sure with all of the Cisco investments and business arms and branches, you have consumer focus as well. But is it right now, is it kind of more focused to the commercial aspect for these flying robots?
Absolutely, yeah. From a Cisco perspective, I think our focus is based on our past relationships and existing infrastructure in place. We are better off serving the enterprise and commercial markets instead of directly going to the consumer market, right? It's a bang for the buck. You have to think for yourself. So we are focusing on those high revenue potentials, high profit margins areas where we can make significant difference in our customers' operations and their satisfaction level internally. So starting from, like, say, oil and gas and mining to power plants and energy inspections, precision agriculture, and public safety, security, live events. Like, there are a bunch of other verticals we can address. And not only these new drone areas, many of the existing Cisco products could be a nice, natural, organic fit into those applications. So for example, I don't know if you're aware of Cisco Spark as the new collaboration platform. So Cisco Spark has, I hate to call it, but it's a Slack-like platform for enterprises. But you can have like bots and textual interfaces and all in Cisco Spark rooms. So we have done some proof of concept with drones where many people throughout the world can actually monitor the drone activity by typing in Cisco Spark room various commands that, hey, drone 1, go do this, drone 2, go do that. And whatever drone is viewing, actually, you can command the drone to take a picture and post it back in the Spark room almost in real time so that the rest of the team, which is collaborating cross-border, cross-geography, they can benefit from there. Other part is like Cisco WebEx, for example, or telepresence, or Cisco Jasper connectivity. What you mentioned is SIM cards, 4G, 5G eventually, and LTE connectivity. So Cisco has this existing portfolio items which are natural fit into that. So talking of WebEx, we had done demonstration at NASA a couple of years back, is drones, the first person view FPV of the drone can be fed directly into the Cisco WebEx session. So people collaborating from Japan, from China, from India, from Australia, from Europe, everywhere in the world at the same time, they can see what drone is viewing at any given point in time. So think of the business impact. Today's drone operations, if they are disconnected, both the operator and subject matter expert, if they are not connected properly, operator and subject matter expert have to be one person, or they have to be physically co-located for any drone operation to be viable. What we are trying to achieve here is we are decoupling those two roles. So it gives better freedom. So your subject matter expert could be sitting in his or her office somewhere across the world versus the drone operator is physically flying in the field. They don't have to be same person, or they don't have to be physically co-located, but you can still achieve the same results. So for example, cellular tower inspection operation, some of the proof of concepts we did, the operator was in the field inspecting flying drones around that, but the subject matter expert was in the back office viewing the feed and commanding, saying like, hey, take left, take right, just go closer to that particular antenna. I want to have a closer look at that antenna. So you can do all those things within the freedom of your own geographical constraints and travel constraints. So that's unleashing many more business cases for Cisco. So people might think, yes, it's a glorified IoT perspective, but at the end of the day, it's a much more powerful machine that can carry a bunch of sensors. It has tremendous potential for connectivity and data processing in a secure way. And it has tremendous potential for software stack at various levels, including edge computing, fog computing, and cloud computing all across.
I love that. That's a great way to spice up the old video conference for sure. I mean,
exactly.
I can imagine, wow, the potentials for that. And I've heard a couple startups, I think there's one called Cape, that might be trying to do some similar type of things where you can kind of remotely control the drone from a distance. But in that scenario that you paint, it makes sense, to have the operator who's a perfectly competent individual that can operate the drone very nicely in that specific environment, and then have the subject matter expert who's directing, hey, zoom in here, or okay, that looks good, let's go ahead and maybe try to capture the serial number of this part on this part of the cell tower.
And in the future, I mean, whenever the permissions and regulations allow the fully autonomous operations, you can completely have the remote operations, so the operator doesn't even have to be there in the field. You can entirely control and monitor and carry out your operation remotely.
What's the next step then? Is removing the subject matter expert, or just leaving them to be able to maybe instead of focus on one job, it's more automated so they can focus on multiple jobs and then be more productive?
Exactly. It's, I think, increasing the productivity, going back to our original point, is like, how can you increase the monetization, productivity, and consumer experience to really drive forward the IoT and digital disruption journey, right? So same subject matter expert can focus on many more projects if he or she doesn't have physical travel constraints, right? They can take care of many more things. So they can all funnel into monetization, experience, productivity improvement, and all that. So it's actually creating a bigger and better scope for jobs, for businesses overall.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors. Genius New York is the world's largest business accelerator competition for unmanned systems. In addition to $3 million in startup funding, the program offers company stipends, housing, resources, programming, and networking opportunities. Genius New York is currently accepting early-stage technology companies who are focused on hardware, software, and data analytics related to unmanned systems. Applications are open until October 1st, so go apply now at geniusny.com. That's geniusny.com. Commercial Drones FM is supported by Deveron UAS. Deveron UAS is building a standardized drone network for farmers all across North America, offering on-demand, near real-time field-level data when you want it. To learn more about how you can achieve scalable data collection in agriculture, visit deveronuas.com. That's deveronuas.com. Okay, back to the show. You mentioned earlier the paradigm of fog computing, and fog computing I haven't heard of, and I wanted to ask you about this. I've heard of cloud computing. What is fog computing? Is it similar to cloud computing?
I mean, people in San Francisco should be quite familiar with fog as a phenomenon, right? It's like looks and feels very similar to cloud, but it's closer to the ground. And that's exactly how the term originated, the fog computing. It has all the cloud-like behavioral patterns, but it's much closer to the edge of the system. So if you think of it as like today's smartphone, for example, it's a powerful machine in your pocket. It's a powerful supercomputer of the past, literally in your pocket. And on the other extreme, you have the cloud computing. But if you think of the infrastructure in between, the data that goes from your smartphone to the cloud, it passes through many intermittent hops of networks. So what fog computing allows, it's a paradigm of distributed computing, which allows you to do compute, storage, and processing at any of those intermittent hops, not just as two extremes. So you don't have to have only apps which run on smartphones, or you don't have to have apps that run in the cloud only, but you can have apps that run in between on any of those intermittent network hops. They can all capture the data in a smart, secure fashion, process the data, and relay only what's needed. So think of it as like, for example, for a drone operation, some multispectral camera operation might generate maybe 27 gigs of data for a few minutes of flight time. If you have only the cloud-based operational paradigm, you have to dump all that data into the cloud first in order to even get started with your processing and getting the results. If you had a fog computing station, for example, it's a compute unit in the field, which could capture all that data and provide the results right away, you don't have to use any of the networking bandwidth between your field and the cloud, which might save some cost, especially if you're going over LTE. But more than the cost, it might provide you the real-time feedback that you're looking for in certain fields, like precision agriculture. If the results come back like 4 days later, that, hey, you should have more water in that particular patch of the field, maybe it's too late sometimes. Or you have more pesticides in other part of the field, it's too late. Instead, getting the results faster at a lower bandwidth utilization and lower cost might be a much better paradigm in certain cases. So that's what fog computing actually enables. It's have a natural common sense way of putting compute, storage, and networking in a secure way. Any point in the network, starting from the edge to the cloud. It should not be at both the extremes. And in fact, we have created a consortium around that for like-minded individuals. So check it out. It's called Open Fog Consortium. And Cisco started it a few years back. So including Microsoft, Princeton University, Dell, and many other players are founding members. And now the membership has grown over more than 50 entities as we speak.
Wow. It reminds me somewhat with the whole distributed computing aspect, somewhat of blockchain technology similar. Do you know, are there any kind of like intersections between fog computing and blockchain? I mean, it's such a buzzword right now, the blockchain, the Bitcoin and Ethereum, all these cryptocurrencies and that kind of technology, but it's focused around this distributed network. And
exactly.
Is that essentially fog computing then?
Well, yes and no. So some aspects are very common with fog computing, obviously. It's like compute anywhere, if you think in a generic way. But more than that, the real power of the distributed computing or distributed ledger, like technologies of blockchain and others, is it's like no single entity owns that piece of infrastructure or information. So that gives the real power. It's a distributed ownership, so crowdsourced intelligence. So having trust in a trustless environment, I think that's the real power of the fundamentals of blockchain technology. And there are many overlaps with the blockchain, with financial markets, with drones, or with IoT, anything. I mean, use cases are unlimited for supply chain. Like, look at it, like whenever somebody requires that, how can I trust what the other person is saying? Do I have to believe on his or her system? Should they believe on my systems? Or there is a trusted third party. So if you look at it, the businesses have been carrying out operations in that way, in a manual manner, with having these escrows and trusted third parties, which are outside of both entities' purview. But this is more of an automated way of carrying out business transactions, like machine-to-machine transactions, in a much more efficient way. So drones have also a great say into blockchain technology, that, hey, how can you verify? How can a regulatory authority verify that so-and-so drone flew at so-and-so GPS coordinates at so-and-so time? Should they rely on drone's own logs, flight logs? Well, they may be tampered. Should they rely on somebody else's flight logs? Maybe they could be tampered too. So blockchain provides like a very interesting trusted system in a trustless environment. And along the same lines, in fact, Cisco has created another alliance on that IoT and blockchain intersections. It's called Trusted IoT Alliance. So with Cisco, Bank of New York Mellon, Foxconn, Bosch, so many big players are coming together to have this sort of an ecosystem of IoT and blockchain intersection.
How long has I love the perspective that we're getting here from you and from Cisco. And so how long has Cisco really had this drone focus, or like how long did it take a certain level of drone ecosystem maturity to be reached before Cisco had this? Or was it like, almost like this immediate thing, like, hey, there's these people flying around with drones, it could be cool, let's put some focus on this, and it could be really successful? Like, what was the timeline like? Well,
it's a journey, right? If you look at it, I mean, it always starts with the traction. So as I was saying earlier, Cisco has this like 5 pillars of innovation: build, buy, partner, invest, and co-create. So as part of our mergers, acquisitions, and investment engines, we are constantly looking out for the cool technologies which are bubbling up in the ecosystem, in the startup world, in the VC world. So some of those activities obviously bring many of the things on the radar. Cisco our team internally has a technology radar product where we ourselves monitor the growth of various technologies and where the timelines and maturity curves and all those things are. So there's additional input from that side. There are multiple other input sources, obviously, but as a result of all those input sources, we identify like few top trends which might have business potential. Again, like we look at it purely from a business perspective, because we believe that in order for any technology to be sustainable and survive beyond the fad, it has to have compelling business cases. It should affect those basic 3 pillars, either monetization, it should create new revenue, or improve the performance, or both basically, and it should enhance customer experience. If they are not doing any of those 3 things, it's highly unlikely for that technology to mature. So we start looking at all these technologies within a very small team, obviously early on, but as the technology progresses and matures, we try to funnel up and kind of put more and more resources into those ideas. And sometimes they get dropped as well, which is completely fair. Not everything is successful. So we are open to that. It's more of a culture of innovation, really. It's a DNA of innovation that we try to follow here.
Shifting focus just a little bit, let's shift focus onto Biren the man, Biren Gandhi the man. So out of all, there's all these different commercial drone applications for businesses that we've mentioned previously. Do you have a favorite, or one that you actually really appreciate and think it's like, very innovative and something that you track specifically a little higher above any of the others?
Of course, it's a Cisco's vision. Not really. I think it's more of the ecosystem is still evolving and converging, to be honest. So everybody is more of having their own silos right now, and nothing wrong about that. In order to go to market and prove value to your customer, you have to go with complete solution. But that's what actually precisely that fact fragments the market in the long run. What Cisco's vision is actually to unify that fragmented market and build some sort of a horizontal drone platform or horizontal system which can provide more value to various verticals. So we are not limited to specific vertical. We let subject matter experts play in those verticals. but we enable them using horizontal infrastructure level capabilities like drone agnostic systems or payload agnostic systems, which are still secure, which are still FAA or other aviation authorities compliant in respective geographies, and which can really achieve the business results in a seamless way. It can offer the fog and edge and cloud-based data processing. Doesn't matter what you choose. It's in the consumer's hands. But we provide all the necessary plumbing and application ecosystem so that the kind of ease you have on your iPhone or Android phones today, like download from the App Store or download from the Play Store or any other of your favorites. In the future, you should be able to do, okay, here is a cool application for commercial drones. I should be able to download on my drone and make it work. I could potentially rent it out as well, just for a day, and then erase it. So all should be the seamless tasks. The ecosystem should support these kind of behavioral patterns if it really has to grow. And that's where Cisco's vision actually is. And that's what we are trying to achieve. I mean, we have this 9 global innovation centers in the world, all outside of US for now, and they are increasing in footprint, like in Australia, in South Korea, in Europe, multiple of them, in Rio, in Toronto, and all. And we try to tap into this local ecosystem, identifying various use cases, working with local authorities, working with customers, academia, industry partners in those ecosystems, and trying to create this big picture vision that Cisco has developed over years. It's going to take a while. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, but at least that's a journey we have started on.
Wonderful. So Biren Gandhi is going to be presenting at Drone World Expo, as mentioned, on October 3rd and 4th in San Jose, California. And you're going to have a presentation. It's called, I believe, the role of IoT software and platforms in the commercial drone ecosystem. So I guess as some last parting thoughts, maybe you could kind of give us a little bit of a teaser, I guess, on the things that you might talk about during that presentation at Drone World Expo coming up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you have to be there in order to really benefit. So be there, make an attempt to be there, attend the conference. I mean, it's going to be very useful. And it's not just Cisco's perspective. I think the goal of conferences like that is it's more of a meeting of the minds. So we bring together intelligence from all over the world. And we are quite sensitive that, okay, as Cisco, yes, we are trying, we are marching along our journey, but we don't know everything. We don't have all the answers. We are very pragmatic about those. So at least let's get together and learn from other experts. So we are trying to bring together other folks as well, the industry veterans who are working on both hardware side of the drone industry, on the software side of the drone industry, operation side of the drone industry, manufacturing. So people from all walks of drone industry are coming together. And we are going to have a joint perspective, actually, not only Cisco's perspective, as part of my session at Drone World Expo. So I think it's learning from the experts all over the world. I think that's the really key message.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Biren, for joining us. If you want to, you can go ahead and follow Biren on Twitter at Biren Gandhi. That's BirenGandhi. And just check out what he's tweeting about. I mean, it's a bunch of IoT and really cool forward-looking technology content on there. And while you're at it, you can follow the podcast at Drones Podcast on Twitter, and then Facebook.com/Drones Podcast. So we'll have more episodes up for you coming soon. Thank you so much, Biren, for joining us. It was a nice pleasure to have you on. So really appreciate that insight that you brought.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. So everybody, we'll go ahead and we'll be back soon. Have a very nice evening. Cheers.